What is up, my beautiful people, and thank you for tuning in to this installment of Between Two Sheets, the podcast that brings you interesting people from around the world. Today, we have Ryan with Sail Libra. He has been sailing and chartering his boat with paying guests for the last 7 years, and I'm actually really excited to talk to him. I've been hanging out with him for about a week, and he's just a cool, genuine guy. So it's very rare that you actually meet someone that's in this life, that's cruising around, that has this much experience. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I hope we can get into some of the stories. Now, as usual in this podcast, I am doing this from a boat. This is not a studio, so you're going to hear some background noise. You're going to hear some lines. You're going to hear maybe some people talking. He's got active charter guests on his boat. So just bear with me and stay tuned, because coming up is a very interesting man.
Before we get into this, I'd like to talk to you about something a little more eclectic than boats: art. If you've ever watched my channel, you'll know I'm a big fan of art, be it audible or tangible, and I've got a few pieces on my boat. This one was painted by an American painter named Al Sprague. You can check him out at alspragueart.com. And while I absolutely love this painting, that's not the only reason that I have for owning it. It's also an investment, and a pretty good one at that. As a matter of fact, contemporary art outpaced the S&P 500 total return by 164% from 1995 to 2021. Now, while I'd love for this piece to be a Picasso, those paintings have historically been bought and sold by a very small group of people, until someone had the brilliant idea to make them available to the masses. A startup called Masterworks. Masterworks has emerged as the premier platform for art investing. They offer pieces from names like Banksy, Monet, Warhol, Picasso, and for just a fraction of what billionaires pay at auction. Log in and browse their catalog, find something you like, and you can invest in shares of that piece. Then you can wait until the piece sells and get your returns that way. Or, if you want more flexibility with your investment, they've set up a secondary market where members can buy and sell their shares among each other, similar to the way you would on Robinhood or Coinbase or any of those types of apps. Masterworks knows what they're doing when it comes to selling art. In fact, they've sold 3 paintings since 2017, with each returning over 30% net IRR to investors. Of course, disclaimer, there are never any guaranteed profits from any investment, but 30%, that's crazy impressive. Especially if you've been paying attention to the stock market lately, because it's been insane. Nearly every top equity firm is projecting returns of 5% or less. I don't know about you, but that 30% is sounding better and better. So check out Masterworks and diversify your portfolio with one of the most stable assets around. If you'd like more information, please click the link at the top of the description and you'll have priority access to skip their waitlist. And it really supports the channel, so go check them out. Big thanks to Masterworks for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, here is Captain Ryan. I know you guys are going to love this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I've done enough of them now where
I imagine.
I should feel comfortable.
All right. I don't think you ever really do. I mean,
I know, right?
think of this. I've done a YouTube video a week for 6 years, and I still get nervous doing this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, like I want it to be good.
Yeah, I know. So I do too, yeah. And so that's when I try to relax. You were talking about that last night, about relaxing and just, if the guy's like hanging half off the rail or something, as long as he's holding on, it's probably going to be okay.
Oh, you're talking about when he's thrown up?
Yeah, or, like I don't really get worked up about things.
What percentage of people puke on your boat?
The percentage of people that puke on my boat is probably at least 50.
No way.
Yeah, it's at least 50. I mean, there's very special trips every now and then where there may be a passage that it's not over 3 feet. So maybe that whole passage is just fine and everybody's just, feels fine. But when we get in rough conditions, you know who's going to be green really fast.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as soon as it starts getting rough, and then some people just at night, when they have no reference of seeing anything, they get sick at night. So I've had people that are fine during the day and sick at night, or fine at night and sick during the day. Either way.
Interesting.
And we can come back and put that in.
No, this is how we're going to start it. Right. Yeah, we're good. So, my friend, 7 years you've got on this thing, huh?
Yeah, so I initially, thought about having this, I modeled my business, right? So I have a great friend now, and he's a mentor, which is John Kretchmer.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And since I've met John just a few years ago and got to know him, he was just such an inspiration to me when I was, kind of coming up and sailing and getting offshore and stuff and reading his stories. That's kind of what drove me to do this. I've sailed professionally for probably at least 18 years, in some form or fashion. And doing the last 15 years in the day sail industry, where, most of my trips were like 2 hour, 4 hour. It wasn't offshore stuff. The offshore stuff was in the wintertime when I would do deliveries, or I would do, expeditions on deliveries, or, later on when I had this boat and I said, all right, it's ready to go. I still had both businesses. I would run the day sail and then run this in the winter. And that's when I worked mainly in the Gulf. And so I was doing Isla Mujeres to Pensacola to Key West, Pensacola to Havana, on this boat. So that was in 2015, which has been about 7 years ago now. It's been, having this boat and taking it from basically a shell, which I knew had really good bones, but I gutted most of the interior and then kind of rebuilt it back, right? So the galley, the nav station, the salon.
Oh, all this is you.
This is all me.
Whoa, this is good work.
Yeah. So I had the original plans that were hanging in the factory, when they built the boat. So I had all of the interior designs and everything, and I could kind of put it back to the way it was supposed to be. I mean, it was in here, but they didn't build it even to the plans when they built it. So I went and tried to put everything in there like Bill Tripp had designed. And this was Bill Tripp Jr. Bill Tripp Jr. was a famous yacht designer, did some Columbias, some Block Islands, things like that. So having the boat and, rebuilding all of this stuff and rebuilding interior, and then taking it starting in 2015 to actually, our first actual, I hate to say charter because it's really more of an adventure, right? When people talk about charters, they talk about something that's like, the same in, the same out every day.
I use the nomenclature cruising experience.
Yeah, exactly. So mine are more of experiences. And I tell people when they show up, I'm like, you're going to pull out of it what you want to. There's no coursework in what you're doing, right? I'm not testing you at the end of every day. It's just learn by experience. And so since our weather windows are set a year in advance, I have no idea what the weather is going to be when I set the schedule a year before.
Wow. So
I'm just putting the schedule together based on the historic, basically pilot charts, right, of the area that we're going to be in doing things. So I know that in the winter that the Gulf of Mexico can be pretty snotty, especially if you're trying to go north, which a lot of the trips that I did are going north. And then, beyond that, when you move down to the Caribbean, you're going to be in the Caribbean during the winter, which is out of hurricane season. And then we're going to take the drive over to the Med in the summer when it's nice over there. And then we're trying to, kind of do this Atlantic loop right now. And we've been doing it now for the past 3 years, and it's worked out really good.
And by
I don't know if that was really way too long or not.
No. Please, it doesn't matter. We have as much footage as we need, and then I'll cut it down. So, when you say Atlantic Loop, can you explain that?
Yeah.
No, they're fine.
Sure?
The background noise is okay, just not the grating. I can't get that out. It's all good. Don't worry. So, just for people that don't understand what this is, what is the loop that you're doing?
So, if you were in the charter industry, which we're really not, we're more the adventure industry. But the weather dictates our routes. All of us. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're on the water in the Atlantic, then you're not going to be out there and exposed during hurricane season where hurricanes are. That's just not smart. I mean, if you're bouncing around in the Caribbean and you're, Southern Caribbean, you're kind of doing during hurricane season, that's fine. But I wouldn't venture to Bermuda in the middle of the hurricane season, right? If you're on a boat that's like this to where you can, in lighter air where you're doing 5 or 6 knots, your forecast window is just not, good enough to get you there without knowing that a tropical system is going to develop. Even me in the spring of last year in May going to Bermuda, I did St. Thomas to Bermuda, St. Thomas, Annapolis. I did those 3 trips back to back. And this was in May, and going north of Bermuda on the first run, we had a tropical system. 2 of them developed while we were there. And so I have a shore support team. They keep us safe, right? They're constantly watching our position and monitoring the weather. And so I get a couple of updates saying, hey, you need to tack or you need to go this way, just to keep us, in more comfortable conditions. So the trip north took 9 days. And
which one?
So the St. Thomas to Bermuda. So, and just to give you an example of, systems, storm systems, right? The closer that you get to hurricane season, the more northern in the Caribbean that you are, all the way up toward Bermuda, which is the Atlantic, you're going to have a chance for tropical activity. It's just a historic fact. So typically, and the reason we did the East Coast and not Europe this past year was because of COVID. I mean, hands down, that's, there was nobody that could, go or come back, and we're doing all these tests here and there trying to get to all these places. So I knew that it would be a bad decision to go to Europe last year, so we went to the East Coast. But I had already scheduled my trips to Bermuda, and I had, clients that had already signed up for those passages. So, and then, just in conversation, John Kretchmer asked me, he said, hey, do you want to do a kind of a tandem sail to Annapolis from St. Thomas? I'm not going to say no.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, this is the guy, right? This is him. So he's saying, hey, would you like to, do a tandem sail? I said, of course I would love to do a tandem sail. Wait, let me look at my calendar. And so, that's why I sailed to Bermuda and then back to St. Thomas all within the same 2-week period, which for most people would be kind of a lot, right? That's 1,700 and something miles or so that we did in 2 weeks. So when I say I don't know my mileage, I just don't know my mileage. It's not that it's a million miles or anything like that. It's just that, those are just metrics that I don't really take into consideration, right? But yeah, that was a long 3 weeks. St. Thomas to Bermuda, Bermuda to St. Thomas, and then 2 days between that trip, St. Thomas to Annapolis.
So on that trip,
right,
when you were buddy boating with Kretchmer, were you guys close to each other?
Yeah, so several parts of the trip, we were very close. Now, John was in I don't want to say because I can't remember the exact main of it. Now, he has a Kaufman 47, but he was on, the boat that he was on was Smoke and Mirrors. So Smoke and Mirrors.
Sounds fast.
No, it's not. It is. A Valiant? No, it's not a Valiant.
Yeah,
anyway,
whatever.
He was on. So John Kretchmer was on Smoke and Mirrors, which was about a 47-foot boat. I can't remember the exact make and model, but it was a little bit smaller than Libra. And in the evening, they would have to they would reef down for like you should, right? We had full crew on the boat, and Libra, because of the Ketch rig, I typically take more wind than a normal sloop would, because my sails are divided up in 3, where most people's sails are divided up in 2. So you don't want to fly really big sails and really big wind. But on a Ketch rig, since they're smaller than what will be on a sloop, I can carry more wind, which is what I call it, full sail. So I'll run 25 knots of apparent wind, full sail. And it starts gusting up to 27, then I start kind of looking to reduce things, right? I have a 130 jib, but my mast is more forward on my line, right, because I'm a Ketch. So my 130 may be a 100 on a sloop, very similar sized. So those are the different things, like sailing a Ketch is your sail plan and different weather systems and things like that. Like, so pointing into the wind, I just put the mizzen away. Really? There's no reason to have the mizzen up when because even if you're trying to point as high as you can point and you have your jib just cranked in as hard as you can crank it in, and since I got my new tool, it's really easy for me to do now.
That thing's awesome.
I know, right? Because the winches on this boat are original to 1969. Yeah, we'll do a little walk around later. So I can pull the jib in as tight as I can. When you're sailing a sloop, you want to bring your main up over center, right, with your traveler, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're really trying to point high, so what does that leave your mizzen, right? So with your mizzen sail, where would you put it to? Because the wind coming off the main is going to turn it to a flag. It's just going to blow and luff the whole time. So if I'm trying to get up to like 40 degrees, 35 degrees, which for a cruising boat that's high. I mean, that's, you may have more leeway at that point than actual, forward motion. Those are the things. So I'll drop the mizzen and just sailing. Now, this is my catch, and I have sailed many catches that have behaved the same way. So maybe somebody else's catch would do differently, or maybe they have a traveler on the mizzen where they could bring it over further on center. I haven't seen that, but maybe it exists to where you could point higher with the mizzen up. But on my catch, the mizzen down, pointing high, off the wind, everything's flying. And so off the wind, we'll take a parent up to 25, which puts this boat well beyond hull speed, and we would be on a broad reach. Just like this last trip from St. Croix to here, to Aruba. I mean, it was... So that trip is kind of listed as, the gentleman's trip, right? Yeah. So gentlemen, they don't sail to weather. Mm-hmm. So this is the most off-weather trip that you can do in the Caribbean, right? St. Croix to Aruba on a broad reach, heading trip. Southwest, real nice. With basically an east wind. And, we were in, 20 knots of wind most of the trip until we got really close to Aruba. Then it picked up into the 30s. But it was a great sail, and we did 214 miles a day, which for, a 52-year-old monohull is pretty spectacular. I mean, to be able to pack those many miles away. Now, it was the perfect point of sail.
What was your top speed?
So the top speed that we hit was actually the record for Libra since I've owned it. So before this record, we were at like 14.5. And I did that. So record speeds on most monohulls, there's going to be some sea conditions involved, right? I mean, it's not flat out sailing, because if you're trying to flat out sail in flat water, you're going to reach your hull speed, and that's it. You're going to get a little over it, that's fine. So off the wind on a broad reach, we hit 17.7 on this boat. Wow. And so I was in my bunk. I wasn't sleeping at the point because it's hard to sleep when the boat's surfing that fast. But I actually was in my bunk, and I knew at that point, I was like, that's as fast as I've ever been. And I was in my bunk. I had no gauges, Watch your foot.
Oh, good, man. Don't worry. That's awesome. I think I'll leave that in, actually.
So they just stepped on the windlass up top. So one of the things that I typically do the first time clients show up is I have all of the safety switches off, which is the windlass is one of them, because on my panel here I can switch it off, and so the deck switches don't work, which is when they, there's two of them. Yeah. One up way by the bow and then one by the windlass. But
actually, that's a mark of a great captain, is knowing exactly what that sound is every single time. If you know your boat, it's like you have a relationship with it. It's almost like a girlfriend. That's why a lot of people name their boats names of women, because you're that in tune. I mean, on my last boat, if I heard a creak, I would say, "Oh, that's the starboard jib sheet block. I need to put some grease on that." I swear to God, it took like 3 years. I can just imagine after 7.
You would know exactly. So talking about bumps in the night, between Bermuda and St. Thomas, we were actually sailing along nicely. We had 18 knots on the beam. We're probably doing 8 to 9 knots, on a nice, comfortable sail. I'm on watch with Dan, which was a client that signed up for the passage. He'd been on one previously, so he's very familiar with the boat. Most of the time I spend a lot of my time in the cockpit at night with the guys, right? So I want to make sure that night sailing is intimidating, especially if you've never done it. So I would never just take somebody and throw them up at the wheel and say, "It's your boat, I'm going to bed," right? So I do kind of nap a lot during the day. So at night I can be more alert. And this was one of the nights where I needed to be very alert. I heard a couple of bangs that sounded really weird. So it wasn't something normal. And this boat bangs. Like, it doesn't pound. It's not a rough riding boat. What I mean is there's objects in the boat that just make sounds. There's conduit in the mast that just thuds every time, you rock on a specific wave. It's annoying, but there's nearly no way to fix it, right? Things roll around in cabinets or cups or plates or whatever. You know what all those sounds are. You've been on the boat long enough to where you know what the normal sounds are.
I gotta interrupt you because I have a really funny story. It'll take 2 seconds.
No, go ahead.
I had a friend that filled his mast with sand because he was so sick of the
Oh,
condor
really? So he
moving
just
around.
pumped it into the mast and like taped the
Filled
bottom
it
off?
with sand.
All right, so that's a genius idea unless you wanted to run anything else through the mast. Right, yeah.
Or, now he's got another 200 pounds of sand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that would probably, that would probably stop it. So yeah, so I do have conduit that runs from the top to the bottom. Apparently some clamps or some straps or something have come loose over the period of 50-something years or whenever they redid the mast, so it knocks around a little bit. But all those sounds are normal. Just like when you're running your boat, like you were saying, you know the sounds. If something's off, then you know exactly what it is. And that was exactly what happened. I heard these thuds, and so I'm down here like lifting up floorboards, like, there's a lot of stuff in this boat to make sounds, and I'm thinking, what is rolling around and making this really dull thud? And so it shook the boat a couple of times, and I was like, a really dull thud from a tin can doesn't shake the boat. So at that point, I started kind of suspecting maybe it was something under the boat, right? Maybe we hit a trap. Maybe, like a...
Or you're dragging like a net or something.
You're dragging some kind of debris, and it's rattling, right? It's flopping up under the boat because Libra has a very large centerboard. And the centerboard itself, so the boat drafts 6.5 feet with everything up. So everything's contracted. It's 6.5 feet. When you put it down, the main board takes the draft of the boat to 16 feet.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it adds 10 feet to the boat. So the chances of me kind of hooking something, they're a little higher than most other people, right? And then I have an aft board, which is, my baby board in the back that adds 4 feet, so I can draft 10. Yeah, now I call it my baby board because it's so much smaller than the board in the back weighs like 250 pounds. And it's solid bronze, so you don't have to mess with it anymore. It's thick. It's there. It's not going to do anything, right? You just keep painting it. But the main centerboard was built just like an airplane wing, ribs and all. And then they filled the leading edge and the last probably bottom 2/3 with lead. So they built this stainless steel wing with ribs in it, right, for structural design and integrity. And then the bottom section of that, they basically drilled a hole after they finished the board and then pumped molten lead into it and let it take its cast inside of the actual centerboard.
Imagine building that thing. That must have been so cool.
So I had this story about the centerboard because I like to think of things, even when I call the ship on the radio at night, I try to figure out what they're doing. So the centerboard was such a kind of a magnificent piece of equipment on the boat. And when I took it out to service it, I got to see the craftsmanship that was put into the board when it was built. And it was something that was kind of amazing where I was like, the boat took about 1.5 years in 1968, 69 to build. And I doubt that they had 50 guys on it, working every day, but it took 1.5 years. The centerboard, it had to have taken this guy. If it was, it looked like one guy wanted to make a work of art, and he succeeded. Now, the problem with that was, I think, that 52 years underwater for a centerboard built out of stainless steel that was from the 60s, this not quite as good of a grade now, maybe it was a 304 or something like that was not quite meant to be underwater all the time, I feel like it failed. And that's what the sound was under the boat. So the centerboard had kind of cracked in half and maybe banged a couple of times against the hull itself, which was really just my fuel storage tanks. They're integral to the hull. And those were the sounds that I heard. And you would never think that you lost your centerboard when you're sailing around, especially when you're about 500 miles offshore from anything. We're basically between Bermuda and St. Thomas. Losing that large of a ballast, that large of something, you would figure you would have more incidents than what you have, right? It should be a big deal, but it really wasn't, right? So our speed went down to about 3 knots with 18 on the beam. Something's not right. So we're in an area where we shouldn't be pushing this much current, but our speed is like 4 knots, 5 knots. It didn't match. The winds on our beam at 18, we're only doing 4. We're like I said, we're dragging something. Something's wrong. And with the bangs and everything I heard, I said, maybe the centerboard just let loose. Or maybe the KRAKEN came up and took a bite out of it, right? And shook it loose. Maybe that was the thud that we heard. because without the KRAKEN, it really wouldn't be that good of a story. I mean, you can't just say your centerboard fell off. Something had to happen, right?
So wait, so the centerboard, just so I have the story correct, it didn't have fiberglass on the outside.
There's no, this is
just
stainless steel, yeah.
Stainless wing, basically.
It's a stainless wing. It's an airplane wing underwater.
With a hinge.
Yep.
And then lead at the bottom.
And then lead at the bottom of that, yeah. So when you let the board itself down, it operates just like a pocket knife, but it goes straight down like that, right? So, and then if I went into water that was too shallow for that board, which, typically I would have the main board up in areas, right? But, it would just kick up.
It's like driving by braille. Really.
Yeah, driving by braille, right. If you really want to know how deep something is, let the board down a little bit until you get stuck. Then you let your board up and back your ass back out of there.
That's funny.
You know what I mean? So it's a touch and feel, just like you said,
have
just
you ever
like
really
braille.
Done that?
Not in practice.
Yes, you have.
There's been some incidences where I was like, I wonder how close to shore I can get before I anchor.
Yeah.
And so I would let the board down, and I would guess that there was probably 2 feet of board down, and so I would drive till the boat stopped.
That's fine.
I mean,
And what did this thing weigh?
70,000 pounds dry.
No, just the board.
Oh, the board itself was about 4,000 pounds. Oof. Yeah, it was a lot of ballast. But performance-wise, we didn't miss it when it let loose. It was I think we probably sped up a little bit.
Did you feel that weight in the back of the boat?
No.
Added or differentiated any kind of sail plan?
So when it let loose, the only thing we noticed was speed. So the main board gives you, for using the boat as long as I have, that 10-foot board added stability and pointing ability. Everything else, it didn't matter. So, sure, if I was going downwind, down swell on a monohull, it'll roll. I mean, it's just part of it, right? You're just going to roll, and when you roll, it gets uncomfortable. You're torquing your whole boat when you do that. So I would just always put the big board down. I'd slow down, but it would give me the stability that I wanted, right? It just made it more of a comfortable ride. Now, if I'm trying to point, like we do a trip from St. Thomas to Grenada, we do it a couple of times a year, right? And we'll typically, it just so happens that every time it comes around, we have a southeast wind, which is the direction of Grenada. So we're now on those routes, we're trying to point as high as we can. Another way to use the board, right? Put it down and point higher. That way you don't have as much leeway. But any other point of sail really didn't matter outside of that. So take it up, put it down. All it would do was slow you down. It's just more drag. And on this boat, this boat was built to the CCA rule of racing for ocean racing.
Oh wait, whoa! Explain that too, because
right. So the Cruising Club of America had a specific set of racing rules out, right? And so a lot of the designers built boats based on those rules. I mean, there's always a way to make things work in your favor, right? Design-wise. So right after this boat was built, and the sister ship to this is Odine. And Odine ran the Newport to Bermuda race several times and placed and set some records for the class of boat it was. So Tripp was, used to building boats to this rule. Well, in the early 70s, unfortunately right before his death, they changed all of the ocean racing rules from the CCA rule to the IOR rule. And so that basically put his designs out of service. So he argued, to keep the CCA rule, and he was, as far as I know, a big promoter of trying to keep the CCA rule based on his designs. But the IOR rule took precedence over that. So that's when you started seeing the different keel shapes, more spade, because this is a full keel boat built for ocean racing. You would never see a full keel boat built for ocean racing now, right? Not like the Volvo ocean race boats, right? When you're really talking high-performance boats, there's no full-keeled high-performance boats. They're all, half of them now are foiling.
Well, most of them don't point for shit.
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
problem.
Right. You're not gonna. Yeah.
But
so
this
that
one has a 16-foot
right. Yeah. So that's what he was really trying to make it point high to bend out.
Wait. We have to interrupt.
All right. So we're just gonna show you this on either camera here we got. So,
wow, that is beautiful.
So
let me make sure we got this on camera.
So Kendra here. This is Kendra. Kendra's our galley girl here on the boat tonight.
Amazing. Is that a salami rose?
Yeah.
That was amazing. Wow. You're a good cook.
Well, this isn't cut.
So this is one of the things. So, yeah, this is actually kind of an odd day because clients show up today, and we're, getting ready to go from Aruba to the DR and then DR back to St. Thomas, and actually call this, and it's kind of a shame I don't have the board right now. I mean, I've already taken the knuckle out. So when I say the board snapped off, let me just finish that story real quick. When the board snapped off, it basically broke off at the keel. But everything internal to that, which is a lot of people don't like centerboards because they bang. They go thud, 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 thud.
That is the common problem.
Thud, 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 thud. Well, because this machine was very engineered, it went down into a wedge, right? So how easy is it to make a wedge? So they glassed a wedge into the boat, which actually it wasn't glassed. It's in the lead because this boat actually has a bolt-on keel.
Wow.
Which, exactly, right? A bolt-on keel with a centerboard.
Full keel.
A bolt-on full keel. So there's 20-something thousand pounds of just lead that's bolted to the bottom of this thing, which is where the actual centerboard pivots from. So it's through the lead. It's actually through metal. What was I saying? I was going somewhere.
You were talking about.
I was finishing something up, trying to get off.
How you still have the main part.
Oh, right. So the board broke off basically in line with the bottom of the keel. It goes up like a pocket knife and slides into this, the trunk, which is what you call it. So I have the hard part of the centerboard. If you were going to reconstruct it, right? So I have what I call the knuckle, which is the whole inside circle part with the alignment for the pin and all this. So I have a buddy in Louisiana that has a metal fabrication shop, a really super nice laser facility. And he said, just send me the knuckle and send me the dimensions and we'll get you a new centerboard. So that's, so I'm excited for that because now I can really sail the shit out of this thing. I mean, that was, what I was trying to do the whole time was just, see how much performance I can get out of that board. But it always kind of was like, am I torquing on it too hard? Because you can feel it sometimes when you're, falling kind of sideways through a wave. This is a lot of weight dragging that thing through the water.
There's so much
force at play. I know, right? Exactly. Right at the point where it snapped.
Man,
yeah.
Imagine.
And so, I mean, I know that I've been in sea conditions and had the board down to where we just fall off the side of a wave, to leeward, and you're thinking, we still fell, 10 feet or so, and so that the centerboard took all of that impact, right? And I know that that's why it probably had either the KRAKEN ate it or metal fatigue or something like that. Over 52 years, it's time to get a new centerboard. And so the problem is centerboards are beneficial to some boats, but a lot of times people lose their centerboards. They just glass over the whole. I mean, they just glass it over. They just say, we're tired of dealing with it. It's not that big of an improvement. We're just going to glass it over. And for most designs where they had like a fiberglass board, it's probably the best thing to do because you're not going to sail to the conditions where you really need it. You're going to be on a more comfortable point of sail most of the time, 90% of the time. Just like my cockpit's so deep that they built a wall to get into the thing or into the cabin. Now I step over that, like 50 times a day, but they built it to keep water out of the cabin, which would only happen like on a sail every 5 years. But I have to step over it every day. Yeah. So I'm going to cut down the entranceway into the cabin to make a more, relaxed entry. And then you just have a crib board that goes in, when you're really taking on water or something like that, right?
That's
because
the way to go.
Exactly. Let's make it easy for the time being. Yeah. And we'll have processes we can take care of when we're, offshore.
In another 100 years, there'll be sensors
right,
and
exactly.
an automatic.
No, so the thing that I want to do is, years ago, it was a Mercedes ad, or Lincoln or something. The drop of water would hit the windshield, and the wipers would cut on immediately, right?
That's exactly what you need.
So I want the hatches to close when the rain starts, right? If a drop of rain hits the boat, it should just all the hatches let down and lock and. Your boat's just dry.
That,
I know, right? Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
You'd never have to run around and shut your hatches again before it rains.
So nice. How many times?
It's been a while on this one, and then when you do it, you didn't need to. But if you weren't here and you were ashore, it would rain cats and dogs all day long.
Actually, I close my boat every single time I leave it.
Yeah.
Just because.
You just never know.
I spent a lot of time in Panama, and it rains
every day. Yeah, right.
So I've got a couple of questions about your centerboard. One. did you think about making it out of fiberglass? 2, how much did it cost to make it out of steel? 3, did he make it exactly the same way that it was made before?
Okay. So the first one was. All right, you want to start all the way over? All right. So the first question was.
One at a time.
You said 3. Yeah. All right. So what was the first question?
Oh, shit, man. You're going to make me go and... now I have to.
No, you're gonna have to Oh, come on.
I'm listening.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if I remember right, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong. 1 is did you consider making the thing out of fiberglass?
Okay.
2, how much did it cost? And 3, did they make the thing the same?
Same size. Yeah, they like the wood over the last one. It cost.
Not just the same,
Right.
but in that is 2 questions.
Fiber dimensions.
Yeah, fiber.
Did they cost?
Did you make it longer? Cost, and then is it exactly the same?
Okay. So let's go over these things. All right.
Are you recording now?
Yeah, everything's.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
I just want to know why you have this type of hole underneath. I mean, why do you have a racing style?
Well, the boat was built to be an ocean racer.
Well, you bought it for what purpose?
Well, I built it to do ocean passages, so it fit, exactly what I
Both
needed.
purposes.
Right? Yeah, it fit both purposes. It being an ocean racing boat, the specifications were already built to Solus to have all the collision bulkheads and to have all of the things that you're supposed to have when you do ocean race. So it's a very safe boat. And with the centerboard itself, I always thought, man, I'm adding a lot of force to this thing, when I drop this board down. And so I always thought about those things too. How safe is the centerboard on this boat?
I mean, if it failed, and it did, it probably wouldn't go through the hull.
Well,
it probably would just fall
Exactly, but so more so is the amount of forces at play on the bolt-on lead keel that it's attached to. Right. So those things, those were always in the back of my head. Like, I know that this thing was well engineered out,
Yeah, I mean.
but it was well engineered, 52 years ago.
But the guy the architect for the boat had to have already made all these decisions. So
Yes.
let's just trust that guy's
Yeah,
opinion.
so we trust his opinion. So that was the reason. So, in building the board back after this incident, I'm still going to go with stainless. I'm still going to go with the airplane wing structure. The board had a bronze kind of a V right on the front, right on the leading edge, right? So if it hit anything, the bronze was harder than the stainless itself, which I think is correct. Or maybe the stainless is harder than the bronze.
No, stainless is harder than bronze.
Stainless is harder than the bronze. So the bronze itself would take an impact and give versus the stainless taking the impact and potentially breaking or cracking.
Did you have any electrolysis issues with this?
I had no electrolysis issues that I'm aware of, right? Because we did take the board off in 2018.
Well, the damn thing did fall off.
It did. It broke actually. So the problem with inspecting the centerboard is we can't inspect inside. And so that was the thing, right? So we can see the outside. We bead blasted it. It was beautiful stainless. I took it to the machine shop. It did have a little crack in it. He welded it back together, and he said, I'm not going to grind it off and take all the weld away, but, you have this little crack here. I fixed it, and so then I went and put like 10 coats of primer and 10 coats of bottom paint on it, because you can't get to the damn thing. If you're in a normal shipyard where you can't extend your keel down when they pick you up, you can't paint it. Because they have to drag you right over the rocks to get you to wherever they're going to set you up at. So the dimensions itself are fairly the same of what they're going to build back. They're going to build it a little bit more streamlined. They're going to put a little bit more engineering into the ribs where it meets the keel, where that failure point was. So we're going to address those issues, and then the cost of that board is still to be determined.
Oh, no.
But now, so I use my boat more so like a bulldozer, and I tell people that. So you can go on a term charter in the Caribbean on your 60-foot Fontaine Peugeot and have a balcony to the world behind you in the BVIs or St. Thomas and the USVIs, however you want to do it, and it's beautiful and it's great. But when you get offshore, maybe you're not quite as comfortable as you are. So the Catamarans and myself, we're not in the same class as far as performance and vacationing, and I'm not a term charter.
Comfortability.
Exactly, comfortability. So you show up on this boat with the anticipation of being in conditions. You know, we're doing passages, and we can't read the weather all the way across. So, and having the centerboard is a great option on this boat. So I'm replacing the centerboard instead of fiberglassing over the hole of the trunk. The trunk.
The hole in the hull.
Right. So I'm not fiberglassing over the trunk of the centerboard like a lot of people would do when they do finally lose their centerboard or it falls out. I'm actually going to re-engineer it to try to make it better, and then install this thing. I'm going to take the boat to. So my buddy's shop is in Louisiana. It'll probably, and he's going to kind of build it in spare time. It's not a high priority for me because I'm not going to really be anywhere where I can put it back on the boat for a while. Right. We're heading to Europe this spring, and then so I'll be back over. So I've got to get over toward the Gulf again because he's in Louisiana, and I'll probably take it somewhere up to New Orleans or even Houston to have it delivered to the boat and then reinstall it. I just have to find a yard that can actually get the boat high enough to put the board under the boat. The board is actually like 4 feet, so it's about 48 inches, wide, or fore to aft, and then about 6 inches wide, something like that.
So on glass boards, and I know this because I broke both my dagger boards off on my Catch.
Yeah.
That stress point where they come out of the hull is always the point where they break, almost always.
Exactly.
Unless you hit something. And,
right.
So what they do is they put a unidirectional piece of carbon right up the center of the board. Like if this is the board, if this piece of, if the board is this wide, they put a unidirectional piece of carbon right there, right in the center. And, so
that alleviates all the stress on those points right there, yeah.
Well, that's what's taken, like the whole brunt of the torque, So what are you doing? Let's really nerd out.
Well, so in the design, when I talked about it with the fabrication shop, I said, so I want it built out of stainless. I still want the lead-infused stainless, but, they use like 16-gauge stainless when they did the board, or maybe even thinner. That was a little too thin. So we're just going to beef it up a little bit. So the last one lasted for 52 years. This one should probably last for about 104. I mean, like well beyond what I'm going to be doing, right? Because if we put it back the same way it was, we'd have a 52-year lifespan, right? We know exactly how long it should last. But as far as performance-wise, we're going to put more ribbing in that area, especially where it comes out of the trunk. And then after that, we're going to make sure that the engineered drawings and stress points, and this is all stuff that they put in their computer system and they model. And in the models, as much force as we think it is, it's still not as great a force as it should be.
Yeah.
Just like when you're on a sailboat going 10 knots, you feel like you're flying, but you're only going like 12 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so we think that the forces at play are really great, and they are. But they're not as well. If you put it into perspective of the tolerances that the material can handle, we're not even getting close to what would break a weld or to what would snap stainless in half. We just don't have that much ability to put that much pressure on it, even with something that weighs 80,000 pounds fully loaded.
Fluid dynamics.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, fluid dynamics, right? Yeah, somebody's making a lot of money somewhere making keels, but I don't know where or who. All right, so you want to hit on a few of these other
No,
ones?
I want you to finish your sentence on the three questions I asked you about the keel. So, did you consider making it longer? Is really what the question.
Okay, so the consideration of making it longer or more than 16 feet was limited by the slot in the bottom of the boat.
Oh,
so I can't, right, so the pocket knife goes up into a holder. There's another board behind it. So unless I combine the two, then I can't make it any longer, which would kind of be badass. But that's probably not something that would really work out in the physics of things, right? So a kind of a cool thing about this boat is where the trunk is that comes up between the lead and then into the fiberglass. Both sides of that, the glass is actually fuel tanks. So my reserves for my boat are 3 fiberglass fuel tanks. I hold about 600 gallons of fuel, and 450 of that is, or 500 gallons is in storage, which is in that centerboard trunk.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it can't be any longer because of all of those configurations, right? So the design itself will stay the same, except for maybe the leading edge or maybe the aft edge, depends on what the fabricator does at the time. So for me, as long as it fits into the slot the first time without having to cut something off of it and like re-weld it in the yard, is going to be awesome. Because I'm not so sure that is going to happen.
Yeah,
But,
don't get your hopes up.
Right. Yeah, no, like this is something built out of the boat with the boat not around.
Yeah.
What are the
It didn't
chances?
work for me.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of examples of that don't work, but
Okay, cool. So, I mean, that was kind of a stupid question.
that was fun. Yeah, that's not so bad.
The cost, you said, if you were to have it built,
So if I were to have this centerboard built and just said, you know what, I have a copy of the plans, my board, the KRAKEN ate it, I need a new one. I show up at a boat yard, a boat facility, just say in Fort Lauderdale, right? 60-foot boat. You just take it to the yard. You say, "Hey, Mr. Yard Manager, could you have your stainless guy build me a new centerboard, and you guys put it in and take it out?" He would say, "Yes, of course we can do that," because it's all about the hourly rate. I mean, they're going to get what they deserve, right? So their hourly rate is going to be, $150, $200 an hour.
the problem is he'll say, yes, you can do it, and he has no idea.
He has no idea, right? And then the amount of labor that's involved in actually constructing that board would just blow it way out of proportion. So if this was not something that you were doing yourself or had your hands on it, it would be not very cost effective, because the performance that you're going to get out of it is not worth about $80,000, which is about what it would be if you just took it to somebody and
That's
said,
the number I was looking for.
yeah, like $80,000. Like,
But you
50 would be very doable, but it's so more than likely it's going to cost me probably about $20,000. 15 to 20 grand is what it's going to cost me to fix my centerboard to the way that I want it.
Helps to have friends, huh?
It does, and if you didn't have the ability or know-how to do it, I'd just class over it, because the performance is not, you know what I mean? You're not going to gain that much performance out of it.
I doubt. I don't agree. Actually,
You don't? Okay.
No. I've had a daggerboard cat. I mean, I know it's not a centerboard boat. I've been in a
Right,
lot of
right.
centerboard boats.
Yeah.
And I just love how they point a
It
wind.
does. It does. But if you had to drop $80,000 to do it,
yeah, no,
Could you
It's not
just-
worth 5 degrees. Sorry, I'll just sail for another 2 weeks.
could you just buy another sister ship, throw the boat away, and take the centerboard out and put it under your boat? So you could probably even do that in a lot of situations and be more cost effective than building a new one from scratch.
Wow.
Which is kind of what I'm doing, but I do like the performance that it adds, and I think it's a good talking point for sure.
Okay, speaking of talking points,
Right.
now that
Yeah,
we're done with the
centerboards,
centerboard,
we're done.
what is up with the aft centerboard? I have never seen that.
So now we move from the main centerboard to the aft centerboard, which I call the baby board.
That's a cute name for it.
Yeah, so the baby board adds 4 feet of draft. It's a solid bronze board with just some holes drilled in it for the cable and the pin. And it's really just shaped like a giant rectangle, because when it goes down, it doesn't fully extend like a rectangle. It stops about 3/4 of the way, so it's shaped more like a diamond or a fin on a surfboard, which is what I compare it to. So if I'm on some really dicey big waves where I'm kind of surfing down them a little too fast or a little too hard, to where your bow rounds up, or where it rounds to port or starboard, depending, that eliminates that. So instead of rounding up when you're surfing down a wave, right? Even you could, if you took a center console boat and you try to surf down a wave, it's going to go one way or the other. It's not going to go straight. You're going to bury the bow, or it's going to go one way or the other.
I totally get what he was thinking
Yeah.
when he put that on the boat.
Right.
It's a huge rudder
Right.
that keeps the ass end from swinging out.
So for
Because when you're going that fast, the
Right.
rudder does nothing.
does nothing, because it's just an extension of the keel. So the aft board, in my from what I put the boat through, the steps that I've done during downwind sails or down swell sails, is that it really helps the boat track straight. So where you spend a lot of time, or where you're overworking your autopilot, that's what eliminates that.
So you don't use them both at the same time ever.
It's a combination of both of them. I mean, so I have played with them in all different kind of fashions, right? But I feel like if I use them individually, they work better, because it's all dependent on your point of sail. Now, if I'm going upwind really hard and I'm not using the mizzen, like I said before, the mizzen upwind on this boat anyway doesn't really give you much. The aft board's not going to give you any more lift, so you might as well have it up. Anything behind the center point of effort, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to slow you down. Yeah, it's just going to slow you down. And like I said, that's just the way that it works on this boat. Other cases may be different, but for the most part, a lot of the so there was a French design, several French designs, and I'm not familiar with the names of them. Sorry, but that had 2 centerboards. So it was a big French design for a while. Yeah, I know.
Never heard of it.
I know you don't see very many monohulls with 2 centerboards.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now that I understand how it works.
Yeah. You have one or the other, or none,
Very interesting.
or you can have just the mizzen and just the jib and no main.
Or
So-
you could just use it to anchor your boat. When it hits, put the anchor down.
You just stop. Right. You want to know that it's 9 feet deep. You just let the board all the way down.
That's amazing. All right, cool. So we got the centerboard stuff. I feel like half this thing has been us nerding out on those centerboards.
Centerboard,
But how interesting.
Part 2.
This would be a really interesting talk for people that were looking at a centerboard boat and wanted to figure out exactly how it all worked, because even before this, I didn't know there were any boats with two centerboards.
Right.
And I've got limited use with them, and I know some of them bang, and some people hate them. And I met even a Garcia owner. You know those Garcia boats? They're super nice. He hated the thing. He's like, I hate this boat. He paid like $800,000 for this boat.
Yeah, a glass over the centerboard. Right. Yeah, exactly right.
Well, it's aluminum boat.
Right.
But we're doing this completely ass backwards, because we have all these notes, and I'm like, okay, we're going to tell your story in the beginning, and it's going to be an origin, and then we're going to talk about, and now we've just been doing now. I really want to hear your origin story. Like what decisions in your life made you today who you are?
All right. So who I am today? Well, it's a long story, but I can really sum it up. So I grew up in central Alabama. I lived on a lake called Lake Martin. When I lived on that lake, it was probably, 5th grade was when I moved there. So that's kind of when you start, because before that, you don't know what you're doing, right? So 5th grade through my senior year, basically, I graduated high school there. I lived on this lake. And in the summertime, I would be on the water, whether it was on a fishing boat or a skiing boat, or, we just had fun on the water. My grandparents lived on the coast in South Alabama, which a lot of people don't even realize that Alabama has a coast, but it does. It's right beside Florida, in between there, Mississippi. Not very much, but enough to where I knew that when I was on the lake playing on boats, that when I came to the Gulf and would play on boats, it was very different. The water was very different. I mean, just having the salt in and all this stuff.
A little bit saltier.
It just drew me to it. And, I had to be a real person for a while in my life. I, graduated high school. I did some, computer certs. I got a job at Delta Airlines. I worked there for about 10 years. During that time, I was able to travel and do a lot of, computer stuff, technical stuff, nerding out.
You were in IT, right?
Oh, yeah, I worked in IT. And so, but I got to travel a lot, working for an airline, and would travel to where people needed crew. And, I would go down to southern Thailand and go between Phuket and Langkawi, just doing deliveries or riding along. Nothing major, just, a body, right? This is before all the Facebook stuff and before all the, I had to go to the dock and walk down the dock to find somebody that needed help. And so I did that. So, I basically just went to the bar at the marina and sat there for like 3 hours. But that's how you find all the people, right? You go to the closest bar is going to have all the people that are in need. So
that's a great way. The potential crew. If you want to find a boat, this is great.
Go to the local bar beside all the boats.
Find a crew finder. None of that.
Yeah, none of that. This was back in the day. None of that existed. So just kind of, I knew. So I was in Thailand for a little bit when I worked for the airline. I had to have a hobby. And doing the sailing things, I knew that when I did it when I was young, I really enjoyed it. I had a big break between about 15, when I realized what cars and girls were, to about 25, where I don't want to say that wore off, but priorities change. Right? You know what I mean? Like, so some priorities change.
It never wears off.
Yeah, it never wears off. Anyway, So I got back in mid-20s and, started sailing again. And then by the end of my 20s, I had stopped work for Delta. I had opened up a day sail business in South Alabama and sailed just basically doing, 2-hour, 4-hour sunset type cruises, right? So every day.
Did you like that point of your life?
Yeah, so in the original starting point of that, when I originally opened that business, it was phenomenal. It was great. I was the only person in the area that was doing those types of trips. Business was really good. It worked, which was odd. There was enough people that wanted to go sailing in South Alabama to where that was a legitimate business. And it wasn't just a hobby. So it was and then later on, it was 2 boats, and then 2 boats were maxed out every day, right? So we put, I don't know how many tens of thousands of miles we put on boats in about a 5-mile radius.
How many people do you figure you
I have no idea how many people. I mean, but we would do, a maxed out trip would be 6 people because these are Coast Guard uninspected vessels. So we only take 6. Just say my average group is 4. I would do 4 trips a day. So that's 16 people times 15 years.
Holy moly, that's a lot.
Well, but yeah, but it's like 6
Wait. I need a calculator.
Well, but it's only 3 months a year where it's really that busy, right? Because it's summertime, right? So, and then during the winter, I would do deliveries and things like that. It's not something that. So the day sail business was a giant income producer, which is what got me to this boat. And so, kind of moving on with the story was, I knew the owner of this boat. He worked for Delta Airlines. He bought the boat in Key West at a sheriff's auction because the guy that had the boat ended up kind of dead.
Oh no!
Right. So the boat ended up in the sheriff's department, whatever they have kind of auctions, right? And then this guy always wanted a deal. So the boat never sold because it had liens on it. Coast Guard liens, people would go put a maritime lien on the boat. So there were several guys that put liens on it. So he basically he got the list, he went to the guys and he said, I'm the only one that's going to buy this boat. I'll buy it. I'll buy your debt for pennies on the dollar. So he bought all of the liens and then went to the auction.
Whoa, he bought the liens before
he went to the auction because all the other people at the auction, because it says active liens,
Wouldn't touch
but they don't know. But they don't know what you don't want to buy a boat with an active lien. Now it's your lien, or however that works. I'm not a lawyer.
I'm sure that.
But now it's your responsibility. So nobody would bid on the boat because it said it had liens on it, but no details. So he found all the details, paid the people off, bid on the boat, got the boat for a song. He always wanted the story.
The guy's a hustler.
Yeah, he's a hustler. He just liked the deal. The boat was the side project. He wanted the deal more than the project.
Did he know how to sail?
Yeah, he did. He was a pilot for Delta Airlines. He was a great guy. And then so he had it for quite a while. The people that did a lot of the refit and worked on it were under him. That were working on it for him under his dollar. And so a lot of the refit, as far as the rigging, happened in the 90s. Mid to late 90s, early 2000s. And then, mid 2000s, it changed hands again to another gentleman in my city, or the town that I lived in, which happened to be the house across from my marina. So now I get to look at the boat every day, but I'm not really thinking about it. And then, the guy's, he's a little older, so I said, hey, if you need help at the shipyard every year to go paint the bottom, haul it out, pressure wash, whatever, just give me a call. He was a super smart guy. He was in the Navy for a long time. And so he would come over and see my other boat, which was a 37 Irwin, which was the one I was doing all the day sails on. And I would have projects on that, and he would come take a look. So finally, one day he just came to me, and I was actively looking for a boat to do offshore sailing instruction with. And he came to me and said, hey, I'll sell you my boat. Because I always told him, I said, if you want to sell it, give me the first option.
Yeah.
That's why I'm helping you at the shipyard.
First right of refusal.
Right. It's that's why I'm going to help you at the shipyard, just so I can have the right to say I want it or not. So anyway, and so it worked out. So I bought the boat. It was a good enough deal to where putting another couple of $100,000 in it didn't really matter.
What's something like this cost?
So when I bought it to gut it, when I bought it as a project, I paid $100,000 for it.
And it was screwed up inside.
Yeah,
the whole
interior,
all this
everything.
wood wasn't here.
Wasn't here, right? So the main bulkheads were here, but the interior, the floor, the fireplace was there, the coal bin was there, some of these lockers, but the entire sole, the whole galley, the whole nav station, all that was gutted out, right? So everything. So I had to build the galley back from scratch.
You like hitting that.
I know, right? So I had to build the galley back from scratch. The nav station was already completed. The guy that had the boat did that for him to sleep in on his dock when I guess things didn't go so well in his house. But anyway,
That's how I ended up on a boat, actually.
that's how I ended up on a boat too, right? Yeah. So anyway, the nav station. Yeah. Cheers, man. So the nav station ended up being a really great berthing spot for me for years. So I lived in that kind of.
But you're talking by your nav station?
Yeah,
You
by
mean
the
it's
nav
Pullman
station. It's
berth
hard. Yeah,
right next to the cockpit there.
And so, I lived there the first few years I ran the boat. But yeah, he didn't do a whole lot to the boat. It was more of, I need a project. So he just kept it. Kind of like a pet. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it.
Like one of those mangy dogs that has their tongue sticking out all the time and like a little bit of tufts of hair here.
Yeah. So at the rate that he was working on, he would never finish it. So, which happens to a lot of people. You get into the project, and all of a sudden, it's not that you've bitten off more than you could chew. It's just that maybe your end goal is not as attainable as you thought it was, right? Like the things that you may want to put into the boat, all of these new objects, all of these. Just say if you went and bought a worker-up boat today, right, like a fixer-upper, and you said, I'm going to go lithium, I'm going solar, I'm going wind, I'm going electric engine, I'm doing all this other stuff. By the time you list out all of your projects, you've already worked yourself out of your budget and really out of a timeline, right? So you can't have all the new stuff immediately.
No.
In my world.
No. In almost any.
In almost any world, right? So, like I got regular lead acid batteries, but I got 12 of them. I refit the boat the way that I wanted to run it.
That's a whole nother podcast, by the way. Is like
the refit itself.
Whether you should buy a boat that needs work or not. I mean, are you really saving that much money? Should you just work to get the money that you would be saving? Because
do what you're good at.
It is a nightmare.
Yeah, do what you're good at. So if you're good at accounting, make your money in accounting and then spend it on a boat.
That's a great idea.
It's ready to go, right? If you're not a very hands-on mechanical person, and I know you can learn all these things.
All right. We're an hour and 26 minutes into this. This is a very interesting conversation. You guys are very lucky to be able to see all of this knowledge coming out of this. He's spewing gold.
I usually don't even talk on
absorbing all that knowledge.
Right.
No, I think it's incredible because that's exactly what I wanted to hear and see. And
It's good.
but I still think that
Respecting
there's
the
some
knowledge,
things that
but when dinner's ready pretty soon.
Pretty soon. We're going to be 15 more minutes.
Okay,
We just need to
yeah.
wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
So let me ask you a quick question before you're going. This boat's done. It's done.
They're never done.
Oh, well,
They're never done.
You've got it where you want it, and you're ready to go. You're refitted. You're doing everything. You pulled out of the yard, and you're in the water, and you're going. What's it going to cost you in 1 year? What's it going to cost you in 1 year?
Your first year
to get the
doesn't matter.
Okay, so your question is, what's the maintenance cost on a boat,
what's
on
the
a
annual
cruising
expense
boat?
based on footage? Based
15
on
to 20% of the cost of the boat.
15 of the new cost
No, of whatever cost that you paid for the
at
boat.
that point.
Yeah. It's 15.
And then that depends on if it's a project or if it's ready to go.
Well, that's the thing.
If it's ready to go, then maybe 15 to 20% the first
Yeah.
year. But after that, you would hope it would go down, but it doesn't necessarily
It's
have
not. Everything's maintenance here,
to.
right?
I mean, a water
Depends
maker's
on length.
You've got corrosion on every.
Yeah. You're constantly replacing things.
What I would say to you is the first year.
Machine right here.
Yeah, right.
Constantly fixing things. Yeah.
The first year that you buy your boat, you're going to put a shitload of money into it.
Yeah.
Sure.
After about a year, you start to know, okay, we can defer this. I would like this. I probably don't need this right now. And then you can start amortizing which means to, say I have a $8,000 project. I can do that over 3 years.
Sure.
It's going to be $2,500.
I'll give you an example. So, if I bought all the sales for this boat at one time, it'd be $50,000. So I don't buy them all at one time, right? So I spread that load out. So I get a new sale every year. You know, if I don't need the sail, then I'm not going to buy it. That year just gets extended.
Or
So
moved into something else, right? Another project.
Yeah, but for the most part, like sails are you know, they're a big expense. You know, sailing around the world ain't free. I mean, the wind's got to hit something, right? You're going to wear these things out. And so, like I said, a set of sails is about 50 grand. So I just try to stagger the years between the sails. So I should be able to get, so the way that I run this boat, I get about 5 years out of a sail, or 4, which is not very long
You
for
can
a
extend
sail.
that by taking a little easier.
No, I could extend it by not using it as much.
What's
That's the
wrong with
problem.
that?
So my deal is, I sail more than the average Joe, right? So I'm constantly on passages, you know, 400 miles, 1,000 miles, 800 miles, where most people are going 30 or 20 to the next spot where they spend a week, or the next spot where they spend 2 weeks or a month. So all of my sails are really drastic. So a set of sails for a normal cruising boat, you know, 7 years, that's pretty good.
You're going through them a lot faster.
But I go through them a lot faster because, well, they're just exposed to the sun more. So the sun is really what kills your sails, right? It's not just getting blown in the wind. I mean, they do get stretched out and bagged a little bit, but the UV rays is what kills everything. Keeping them exposed to the sun and not covering them, or not having a good stack pack or something like
when you're
that.
crossing the Atlantic every year and stuff like that.
They're up all the time. So the sun just hits them all the time. All right.
All right.
Moving on.
Moving on.
So the next topic. No,
Hey, you better be sorry. Stop cooking dinner for all of us.
Are you kidding?
Right.
It smells amazing in here.
So I heard, James, that you're going to go back to Cuba over the next few months here.
Yeah. I'm planning on being in Cuba. Let's see. This is February 28th.
Yeah. Well, that's close to it. It's like
In
26.
1 month, I would like to be in Cuba.
So on the south coast,
Yes.
just north of Guantanamo, somewhere around
Probably
there.
come in. The last time I did it, I went from Havana around by myself. By the way, that was a really cool trip.
Was it? Did you go around the Mexico side?
Yeah. And it was such a. I mean, that was like my first country I've ever sailed to.
Oh yeah. Like outside of Mexico or Panama.
No,
right?
no. Like,
Oh, like ever? Okay, all right.
and like outside the United States, and it was such a cool adventure for me because I was so excited, and just had a blast going through that, and I want to do it again.
Yeah.
This time I would probably check into Cienfuegos and then just make my way.
Yeah, bounce around. So I've never been able to do the south coast. I did Havana like 15 or 14 times.
Which is also amazing.
Yeah, so when when Cuba was opened up to recreational boating, there was a few qualifying things that we had to do to be able to take a charter there, right? So there wasn't a lot of I don't know, businesses that were in, you know, legal states to be able to carry paying passengers to Cuba. I don't know, that's a long way to say that there was a lot of people that couldn't do it, and there was only a few that could. So I just tried to make sure that I could, right? So I made sure that I followed all the rules and all the T's and the licensing and all this.
And you had to deal with both the Cuban government and the.
So the Cubans don't care. So they don't care if you're bringing a charter, bringing yourself, or bringing whatever, right? They don't care. But the U.S. side, because of the way that the agreements are with the shipping and all this other stuff, to have an American vessel that's commercial, that does international travel, right? So now you get into like STCW, you get into all of these different realms of things. And because you had to have a permit from the Coast Guard to go to Cuba, even in good times when it was open, they still checked the license of the captain on the boat if it was a charter trip. And so, you know, say charter trip real loosely. I'm taking, you know, clients that are trying to learn how to sail. It doesn't matter. They're paying to be on the boat. It's a charter, right? There's no red or
And
green.
you went with that. You didn't try to hide it.
No, we're not. You can't hide it. It's the Coast Guard. I mean, they're not idiots, right? Oh, this is my 6 buddies, you know, from all over the different parts of the
What's
country.
your last name again?
Yeah, what's your name again? Yeah. So that doesn't work. So, and we know that the Coast Guard is between Cuba and the States. I mean, we know that they're there. We're not trying to hide anything. Yeah, they're all the time there. They're all the
If you
time.
guys, I keep butting in for this, but
No, it's fine.
if you've ever sailed in the Caribbean at all, the Coast Guard's here right now.
Yeah,
There's
in
a Coast
Aruba.
Guard
In Aruba.
boat in Aruba. We're about as far as you can get from the States in the Caribbean.
I mean, we're literally within sight of Venezuela, and there's a U.S. vessel or U.S. military vessel within 10 miles of Cuba.
So they don't just patrol in the States. It's not like a 15-mile thing.
And the reason they're here is drug patrol. So the Coast Guard itself is trying to slow the progression of drugs into America through the Caribbean, which has been one of their things since the 80s, right? They've been down here doing this forever. And they work with the Dutch and the French and all this stuff, and they try to corral all this area together. So, like I was asking you the other day, have you been buzzed by the Dutch Coast Guard in their C-130, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they just fly right up your stern, and you know,
They've actually called me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and the guy that runs that airline has a perfect British accent.
right? Yeah, I think you were telling me that. Yeah,
Perfect English.
yeah.
It's weird to hear it around here.
Yeah, and so all of these, you know, regulations to go to Cuba, we basically, as a business, went in and said, we got to, you know, there's no way around it. And there was people trying to skirt the system, and they succeeded. And you knew that they were, but it's fine. There's plenty out there. But we were for like 5 years or a little less, which was when it was open while we were there. We did one of the first Pensacola to Havana races. That was the first chartered trip that this boat was ever on, was actually a race. And we placed first in our class, although it was really just a race to get to Havana. It wasn't a real ocean race, even though we won first class. We did motor a little bit, which was allowed in this race. And so everybody was trying to do it to beat a weather system to get in there. So yeah, this boat with Cuba in mind was kind of its starting point. You know, it was birthed going to Cuba on its first trip with you know, paying, you know, guests or, you know, trainees that are trying to look to sail.
Under your ownership.
Yeah, under my ownership. So before me, it had been everywhere. But, you know, Cuba was the first time that it had really been out of Alabama in about 20 years. You know, and I had worked on it for 3. The other guy had it for like 10. The other guy had, you know. So there was a progression of where it got. But, you know, I couldn't have been more impressed with it when we sailed at that time. It was just a great trip. And Cuba itself was awesome. The Associated Press were there while we were there. We had news articles and all this stuff about the first legal race from the United States to Havana after all of those things were lifted. And we could get permits to go to Cuba again. So I've done the north side, and I've seen the north side in a fury with cold fronts coming down. I've seen the north side with, you know, normal seas, you know, getting between there and Key West, which is where I ran a lot of my trips. I mean, 10 hours, you know, less than half a day you're there. Or back.
90 miles.
Yeah, it's 90 miles. So coming north with the Gulf Stream, I mean, we're blasting. We were doing 10 to 12 knots. But outside of that, going down, it's a lot slower. You know, it would probably take us, you know, 18 hours, something like that. And I would always try to be...
18 hours going from Key West to...
Yeah, because you're pushing the stream. So, you know, going south, it's a lot more... You're just slower. So you can skirt the top or skirt the bottom, but you still got to get across the stream, which is pushing you the wrong direction.
I remember going around the Cape, which I...
Oh, yeah, I understand. I get it.
And it was rough.
It was rough. Yeah, I know, right. So a lot of times when I was running Pensacola to Isla, which is just straight across from there, I would actually cross the Gulf Stream, which we call the Gulf Loop Current. So I would catch the eastern side of the loop current and fly down to the most western tip of Cuba, right? And then I would have to cross it again. And then I would have, I know, right? And then I would have to cross it again to get over to Isla. So we would just shoot a little south, and it would just slingshot us right in there. So I've used the Gulf Stream quite a lot to my advantage. But going to Key West to Havana is just into it. It's not that it's hard. It's just slower. Yeah, it's an overnight sail. Yeah, so you leave in the afternoon, you're there the next morning. It's 18 hours.
I love doing those kinds of sails. A lot of people are night sailing. What's the word?
Those are the things. Yeah. So those are the things that I try to instill in people, is the confidence to take your boat overnight. I mean, that's, you know, there's so much, I don't know. I don't even know a good word to describe it, but
It's unnerving.
It's unnerving for a lot of people to sail at night. Have I hit things at night? Yeah. I mean, not big things, right? You know, sticks, logs,
I hit a whale.
But you wouldn't see it. But you wouldn't see it in the daytime, right? So most of the conditions that we're in, you're not going to see it in the daytime anyway. You wouldn't see a log that's 8 inches in diameter that's 6 feet long. It's just going to be floating in the water, and you would never see it. So people worry about just running into anything. I had one guy on the boat. He was legitimately concerned about getting lost
on the boat.
I mean, just being in the water, like trying to go from point A to point B.
Not like falling in.
No, like literally, like I don't know what direction to go now.
Well, that is not a way out there thought, because
right, it's not a way out there thought.
A lot of people, when they think of the water, it's just this
huge expanse
body of water. Like they're used to roads with lanes, and then, like this is the here, and you put your pants on right side and then left side. There is no road or
there's no road. Yeah, there's no road out here. So the road we take, and that's what I was trying to explain to him, was you look at your weather window, no matter what your weather window is. Like mine is always set in stone. Like I'm typically leaving on this specific date. It doesn't matter what the conditions are. I'm not going to run in anything dangerous, of course, but because we sail in the good times of, say, the pilot charts, right? Caribbean in the winter, Med in the summer, and we should have fairly predictable weather. So that's why I scheduled the trips that I do and the times that I do.
So part of having a YouTube channel, and I'm sorry about the difference in sound, is all the batteries end up dying, and then I've only got one for my camera because I lost my other one, and you just have to work with it. So now you guys are going to see me on the GoPro and probably hear me a little bit different now. I'm going to put it on the sewing machine. That's an awesome sewing machine.
Yeah, no, right.
Like,
in case you ever need a commercial sewing machine on board.
This is your galley table.
And I do have like the it's active, right?
Oh, wow. Do it again. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. All right, so that reminds me.
It's an expensive way to get blinds.
That reminds me, and we were just talking about this too, of my friends Jordan and Des.
And Desiree with a sewing machine, right?
Atticus. Yeah. When I met them, I haven't told you this yet, but when I met them, I had this big rip in my jib, and I was just using it.
Right. Sometimes sails tear, and you just can't fix it, but it's not going to tear anymore.
At this point, I didn't know what I was doing. So it was a cruising laminate sail, so it was like Mylar in the center, and then
one of those.
very very thin Dacron on either side, and then strips of fiberglass and carbon.
Was it one of those things that really kind of got nasty when it started coming apart?
It was the worst thing I've ever tried to fix. It's impossible. You cannot fix it.
Right.
So what Des did was she's like, and she said the same thing. She's like, you're pretty much screwed. And I'm like, oh, please, I just need it.
Just stitch it back.
I just need it for another 2 months.
Right.
So we went from East Harris all the way through the canal and picked up the new sails on the other side of the canal. But so I had that fixed forever. But Des, originally they were in East Harris. They were refitting their boat, their 30-foot Allied Seawind, I think they had.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's exactly
I think they had like 3,000 subscribers, and maybe I had about the same.
They were just kind of getting started. I remember. It was very similar to the same time.
And then I loved Jordan. Me and him jammed on the guitar.
I know. I still hadn't got to meet Jordan yet. Jordan, I want to meet you. I've been trying to meet you. Let's get together.
Yeah, very, very cool people. But and this is the whole point of this conversation, you had Des on board.
I had Des on board for a passage from Isla Harris back to Pensacola. Which if you could go look up those episodes, they were great episodes on their channel. But she's such an awesome person, and it was such a good experience, I think, for her, because she was looking to get more confidence. Her and Jordan had been sailing and kind of living together on the boat for quite a while.
But they didn't have many.
They didn't have a ton of miles. They didn't have a ton of miles, and so they were still exploring and learning together and stuff like that. And then I think that it was really good for Desiree to kind of branch off and go to and come aboard Libra, and learn with different people, because if you're always learning from the same person, things get run over a lot of times, right? Like you don't get, there's something that you don't get, or there's a piece missing, and it's hard to put the package back together. But if you're learning from, like in this group environment on Libra, where I have 6 clients and myself, and a mate that's been on here for quite a while, you're going to learn from everybody. You're learning from the people that have not even been on this boat, right? But they've been on different boats or other boats. So everybody that takes these trips, especially on my boat, are like-minded. So Desiree ended up in a situation where she was with all of these people that had her same desires and dreams that she had.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so, you know, she made friends with basically all the people on the trip. She's a very personal person on the boat, but and I kind of feel guilty because I treat her like she was almost like one of the crew.
Well,
I was like, yeah, you've been living on the boat. You know what you're doing.
yeah.
But yeah, so like one day she like did ceviche. You know, we called it mahi and then cleaned it, and then she made ceviche that day. And then we had a really big storm, which is documented very well, that she slept or stayed in this Pullman berth right just behind you for 12 hours.
Oh.
She slept there for 12 hours while we were in this like 40, 45 knot, you know, storm that we were in, but it lasted quite a while. And I remember in the video, she just kind of woke up. She was like, oh, I think I slept for 12 hours. Or 11. Or,
That was
or
the
whatever.
documentation you have
exactly,
from like
exactly.
you being like, oh my God, I hope my main doesn't
So the last 12 hours were not even documented at all. But she was so funny when she woke up. She was like, I think I've been asleep for like maybe 11 or 12 hours. But
Desiree got me here.
But she was a great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you
Yeah.
go. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
That's a
actually,
fact.
that's very cool of you to say.
Yeah, I mean, she did. I watched their program. I saw that. I looked at Cell Libra. I saw when she took the episode and came to your boat.
Yeah.
And basically, she wanted to go out on her own
Right.
and learn her own sailing because she didn't feel that confident. That was her own words.
yeah, and she
I
explained
thought,
that.
That's pretty impressive, and I looked into that, and she got me a discount too, bud.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
But they're impressive, and she was really impressive.
Yeah,
and I agree.
I love Desiree. I love
You know,
Jordan.
it's-
They're so awesome.
Sailing's about sailing, but habits are habits, and not all habits are good, right? So it's not that people do things wrong, but she went out and learned from others and grouped all that knowledge together, and I find them very impressive, both of them. I really do. But that's why I'm here, because of her.
Awesome.
That's real.
Des, if you're watching this,
I know, right?
love you, babe. You're such
Yeah.
a cool girl, and Jordan too. I mean,
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, we're always
Jordan's-
George's like always like say, no,
Jordan's okay.
Desiree's so great, and George's like, oh, you're there too.
He's a very patient
Yeah,
individual.
they're great people, and I'm glad that Desiree came along on the trip. But it was very similar to the same time that you met them, right? So I think they had 15,000 subscribers or something like
Right
that. And I was
after.
like, you guys are such cool, you know, personalities on YouTube, and your audience is very genuine. And I was just, you know.
sorry.
Man, you're trying to make all kind of accidents at the same time. You're gonna spill water on your laptop, break the camera on the bottom.
Yeah. That was all because I was trying to get the shot.
No, you're fine.
Okay, stop moving.
There you go.
There we go. Stop.
Centered up. So yeah, Jordan, Desiree, always welcome on board. I mean, we've had a great time together. You know, ever since that Desiree did the passage on here. We've tried to get together like 3 or 4 different times between the boat shows and passages and doing
hard, man.
pre-COVID stuff, during COVID stuff. And it was like, there was just never been a good time to get together because by the time she did the trip, I ran my Atlantic circuit, came back, COVID happened.
Yeah.
It was like all instant. I ran one trip down here. We were going to do a few things where Jordan and Desiree were actually able to come down, but all of that kind of got shut down during the thing. Yeah,
you should
it was great.
still
It was
really
great.
try to meet.
Yeah, I know.
both of them
You know what,
because they are like a cohesive.
Yeah,
team.
they are, and they're on their way. So I don't know how long it's going to take them to get here, but apparently they will start. I think in the Caribbean. At least that's the rumor that I've heard.
Oh, I think they're in
Washington,
South Carolina.
Exactly, they're on the East Coast now with a new boat, doing some projects and getting some things built. But I hope that they're coming to the Caribbean. You know, when they get done with that.
I really hope
for
that
their
you get a
kickoff
chance
part,
to
yeah.
hang out with them.
Yeah,
They're
I really
so
do.
Rad. Like they're not. There's a reason they have 300,000 subscribers.
Oh, I know, right?
They're just so
so
cool.
personable,
Yeah.
right? Exactly, and that was what drew me to them. You know, first off, when I was like, oh, this
Yeah.
is, and they had been on YouTube for a long time
Yeah.
before, like they had 10,000 subscribers 2 years in, or
Yeah,
or
but
more.
you know what? They weren't going anywhere.
Right,
That was
exactly.
the
Now,
problem.
so they
And
were
as
in
soon as they
Isla.
started going,
Yeah, as soon as they
everybody's
were
like,
in Isla.
"Oh my God, this
Right.
couple is amazing."
They're moving, yeah.
Yeah.
They're moving. So yeah, it took them a while to get it going, but they're flying now.
And
it's
she
fun
is
to watch
she is a wicked witch with cinematography, man.
Yes.
Like and photos and like I have actually called her and be like, "How did you do that?"
Right.
I want to know.
I know.
Because I want to do the same thing. Can you handle this for me? No.
I know. I had some music one time, and I was like, I really love to put that music to one of my videos. And she was like, "Oh, here it is. It's on, Epidemic Sound or something like that.
Yeah.
Here's the title of it." But yeah, they're great people. I mean, we could talk about those guys all night. I don't think that they come any better than that.
All right. Speaking of YouTube channels, how do people get a hold of you?
All right. So I am not a YouTube influencer for sale or anything else that I'm aware of. Just making sure. I had to think about it for a second. So I mean, we do have videos. Most of our videos are on Facebook, and they're beautifully done, and that gives you kind of an overview of what our trips are like. So if you really want to get hold of us and go on a passage with Sail Libra, you can check our schedule at saillibra.com. That kind of gives you an overview of our schedule. It's kind of what you would think it would. Caribbean in the winter, Med in the summer, right? Or Western Europe. So we don't go. This year we don't go all the way up into the Med, but starting in May we go to Bermuda, and then in June, then Bermuda to the Azores, and then we're going to do Azores to. Now we're going to do Plymouth in the UK.
Oh, cool!
Exactly. So then we'll be in the UK. Then we're going to go from there to Lisbon, and then Lisbon, the Canaries to
Portugal.
Cape Verde, yeah. So we'll be from Lisbon and Portugal to the Canaries in Spain, and then to Cape Verde.
I want to go on that one too.
Yeah, no, right.
Can I just
You
come with you the whole time?
Yeah, just go all of them the whole time, all the way across the Atlantic. No, but they're great trips, and what a lot of people don't understand is you could probably fly into one of these European cities cheaper than you could fly to Orlando. I mean, it literally is, like, for most of the central part or western, eastern part of the states, getting to Europe can be just as cheap or just as easy to get to as the Caribbean or any other place in the country, because a lot of the airlines that you're going to jump onto are budget airlines, European airlines, things like that. Some of the prices are a little less, so you get great deals going to Europe. Well, especially now during COVID times, but I think things are going back to normal. Like, you used to be able to fly Portugal to the Canaries for like $15.
15?
Yeah.
1-5.
There was one on Ryanair.
No, I think Ryanair's defunct now.
It may be, but back in the day when they were still operating, and this may be why they're not operating, was because you could take a flight from like Madrid to the Canaries for like 78 cents. I mean, it was like some kind of ridiculously low cost, and like if you were a resident, of the Canaries, then it was like compounded. You got, because it's like how do you get home?
No,
if you live on an island, right?
I think actually the reason that some of these cheaper ones are defunct, I think WoW Air went under, Ryan maybe,
yeah.
And then they used to have one called EasyJet in the Med,
right?
Where you could just take a flight anywhere for $50. I think a lot of those places went under because of COVID.
COVID, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the margins were so small they couldn't handle a year of nothing. So.
Oh yeah, no, I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, too bad. Okay, so if you guys want to take a ride on Libra.
Yeah. If you want to go for a ride.
www.saillibra.com.
Saillibra.com. You can visit our Facebook page, which has a ton of information.
Perfect. What's that?
Sail Libra on Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Or you can visit the link to Facebook off the website. Our current schedule is there. 2023 is coming up soon.
Sweet.
So we have a lot of passage opportunities. We still have some space available for 2022. So look it up and see. We always have a wait list. So if a passage is full, that doesn't mean that it's full.
Oh, okay.
Right. So like
get on a wait list.
Yeah.
People have problems.
Because people have problems, right? So all the time, I would typically say that on a passage, when somebody signs up for it, out of 6 people, that there's a chance that somebody's going to drop out, or 2. So even if you're on a wait list, it's a good idea.
If you're on one of these passages in 2022, you have the chance to be on it with me, because I am definitely going to join you.
You're going to grab it. Yeah,
I'm going to join you next year, man.
Right,
I'm not kidding. I really want to go.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
On
We'd
a
love
passage
to
on
have
Libra.
you.
And then you might even meet Desiree and Jordan, because they're going to join you again, right?
I hope so. I hope we
think
get
they
back
will.
on board as a group. That would be fun. We
Yeah.
tried to do it during COVID. It didn't work out, so we're going to wait. Hopefully, fingers crossed, COVID's over, maybe.
You know, it'd be really cool if we got ZINGARO and Atticus again.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's been so long.
Yeah.
And then we can make some music.
Yeah.
Jordan's actually a really good
guitar
guitarist.
player.
And I play guitar too. And like last time we were together, I I had like kind of a bromance with
I
Jordan.
know.
just because-
Yeah, right. I figured I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I play the guitar for all the wrong reasons.
He's a handsome young man.
Yeah, he's a handsome young
I'm a
man.
bass guy.
Yeah. Oh, bass. Well, look at that. We got the bass player.
And
We got a whole band.
the food.
Yeah, and Kendra will make the food. Let's just all give Kendra a little bit of love right now.
All right, Kendra, thanks for the smorgasbord of
Yeah.
food.
Show us what
And
you
we're about
got.
to have dinner. We're about to have dinner too, right?
Yeah, please.
Here you go. I got some potatoes that I already ate because they're really good. Green beans and pasta to go with. Some fish piccata. You can't see it.
They got the shirts with Bud now. Yeah, that's the craziest
Yeah,
thing
we
I've ever
caught
heard in my life.
some wahoo,
They're
so
cute.
I'm making piccata. There you
I
go.
know, wahoo. I'm ready for some wahoo. All right.
Isn't she cute? All right,
Isn't she?
let's wrap this up, my friend. It's been long enough.
All right, so wrapping this up.
Wait, hold on. We have officially broken my record for podcast.
Of talking.
This is
Oh,
2
yeah, right, exactly.
hours of podcast right now.
It's 2 episodes. 2 episodes.
No,
But
it's
I think that we covered a lot of information. And if anybody has any questions about stuff, you can always reach out to me.
Or me.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
I feel the same way.
Let's just, if you have a question, ask me. My cell phone number is on the website. Just
Well,
text
don't
me.
do that.
It's there already.
Oh,
It's
boy.
been there.
You're gonna get some calls.
So I get the call. I get those calls. I get those calls. Yeah. No, but yeah. People have questions about sailing. I don't mind sharing knowledge, so they can text me or they can send me an email. Either way.
You know, the reason I started my YouTube channel in the beginning
Thank you.
was to inspire and help people
Yeah.
on their journey
Yeah,
towards
exactly.
cruising. And I really want to share the knowledge, and I really want to help you out. So if you have, if you really want to buy a boat and you're really unsure and you don't want to save like $100,000, contact one of us and we'll tell you, like, look, this is how it goes.
Exactly. So Libra especially is a way for people to experience, true offshore sailing in an environment that's more, I'd say, tame.
Yeah.
It depends on the conditions, but
Yeah.
at least there's a leadership there that keeps you safe. The vessel's well founded. everything's fine there.
Except it's missing a centerboard.
Yeah, except it's missing
Maybe you
4,000 pounds of ballast.
I'd say like that's a good 2%
That's
discount.
that's an accessory. it's like having an asymmetrical with a sock.
Yeah, exactly. Actually,
It's the sock.
that's a really good
Yeah.
analogy
No, it
because
is. It's an
really what it
accessory.
only does is make you like 0.5 degrees higher.
More efficiently, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can sail more efficiently with a centerboard.
Yeah.
But I hardly ever sail in those conditions anyway, right? Because gentlemen don't go to weather, right? I mean, you know what I mean? So,
No, I don't. I almost
yeah, I know,
always
right?
sail
Always
weather.
have to go to weather, right? It's like every one of my trips seems to be that way. I always thought about like scheduling a trip to go in one direction and at the last minute change it.
Oh,
That
that's a
way
good idea.
karma doesn't work against you. Yeah. Because if you schedule a trip that the weather's going to be shit.
Yeah.
But if you just
Yeah.
change it at the last second and go the other way, you'll go with the wind
Cool.
every time. That's been great, having this conversation with you. I hope that we get together in the future and have
Well,
fun.
speaking of going with the wind, we're leaving on the same day, so we might actually
Yeah, we
buddy
actually-
boat all
so-
the way across the
So
Caribbean.
you're going to St. Martin
Yeah.
here in a few days, and I'm going to be going to St. Thomas, which are only like 80 miles away.
Yeah,
as
so-
far as Virgin Islands go. But yeah, we're gonna swing through the DR on the way, spend a night there, and then head on over to the VI, and then you have one more night of sailing before you get to your
Oh
destination.
no!
Yeah, I know, right? Which would be the St.
we
Martin.
may
yeah.
be inadvertently sailing buddies for the
It's
next
same,
like
yeah,
2
for the
weeks.
week, right?
Yeah,
at least
or
for the
a
week, yeah. All right, yeah. Well,
Pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, pleasure.
Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope to meet up with you again.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I'll stop in your destination
sure.
and we can do another
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
these.
it'd be
'cause
great.
I didn't hit a couple of the points that I really wanted
I know
to.
we had some
and,
things on the list here that we want to do.
Dude,
And
it's so interesting just sitting and listening to the
Yeah,
wealth
just
of
a lot of
knowledge
this
that
stuff.
you have. So
Well,
I'd
we've
like
been
to
at
do
it for a
this
long
again.
time. If you want to experience what true offshore sailing is like, surf on over to saillibra.com, put in promo code ZINGARO, and get your special discount on the passage that you select. Now, if you have a hard time selecting one, always contact me. We can walk through a bunch of different scenarios and your time off or whatever time length you have going, and we'll get you out there and get you some experience. So, James, thanks, man.
Yeah, I think it's really
I
cool. what you're
appreciate
doing,
you.
man.
Appreciate you coming out.
And actually, to be completely candid, I really like you as a person.
Yeah.
You're a cool cat.
Well,
Very nice to meet you.
yeah, you too, man. It's been fun. I mean, we've hung out for 3 nights.
Yeah,
3 nights.
3 nights.
I remember some of them.
The
first one, I was so tired.
He was like 21 days out to sea, and I was like, "Hey
Yeah,
man, what's up? I know
let's
you.
go, right,
You're
yeah.
this guy." And then I invite him out to go karaoke, and he's like a walking zombie.
I was so tired.
Really funny. So that's probably the night you don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're great. So come sailing with us, and look forward to hanging out with you in the future for sure.
All right.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching. Much love. This is the end of this Between Two Sheets podcast. This is the longest podcast we've ever had. Please go to saillibra.com if you guys would like to see more about Ryan's story. His whole diatribe of the boat and everything is on that site. Go for a passage. Meet this cat. He's a cool dude. Peace, love, hippie beats.